Hello, everybody. I hope everything's working. I'm pretty sure my microphone's working. Welcome to the Untitled Counter-Strike show with me, Graham Messioso Pitt. I'm the general manager of Complexity Counter-Strike, and I was asked if I wanted to do a show. The only direction they gave me was about 1 hour regular on the week, on like a single day of the week. So we picked Wednesdays, and generally just talk something Counter-Strike adjacent, bring on some guests, talk about whatever I see as interesting for that week. And the main thing is don't get cancelled and don't get yourself fired. So that's what we're working with. This week, I'm just going to say I'm going solo. I think there's a few things maybe we want to, update you guys on, talk through a bit. And yeah, at the end, I want to do a bit of an AMA, get you guys. We haven't done one of those, I think, for a while now, maybe a few months. So want to see what you guys are thinking and what we can update you guys on. And yeah, again, it's an Untitled CS podcast. So we're still looking for a title. That isn't the long-term title, but we couldn't really think of what it wanted to be. And I didn't know exactly what the show will evolve into. So wanted to just sort of leave it open for now and make it very clear that there's room for development here. But yeah, this week I think I've got some notes here. Yeah, I think I want to just cover things like sort of my feelings on the season so far, how we've been playing, and obviously we want to talk about the coaching situation. We recently made a change with our coach, and then obviously looking forward to what we've got coming up in the next few sort of weeks to months, and yeah, sort of go from there. So yeah, I mean, I guess I'll just jump right into it. The season so far, I think, has been tough. I think that's quite obvious for everyone. We can talk about sort of the end of last season as well. Obviously we lost Elige and we let go of Floppy. Two decisions which were hard and easy at the same time. Letting go of Ricky Floppy was extremely hard. We worked together for over 3 years. Obviously, he's been teammates with guys like JT and TC for even longer than that. So, it's hard to let go of someone who you've become, friends with outside the game as well. But I think, maybe he'll correct me one day and say I'm overstepping, but I think he needed the break. I think he needed the time off as well. So I think it was something that suited sort of both parties in the end to take some time away from each other. It was a really good relationship we have with Ricky. I talk to him quite regularly, and yeah, he's feeling quite good, I think, right now. I think he's working on himself and he's happy. So he's probably not happy about the recent stock market trade issues, but he's happy otherwise, I think. So yeah, feeling all the best for Floppy and hoping he's doing well. The Elige situation, yeah, obviously I think that was something that people, I don't want to say saw coming, but sort of expected. And I just want to be completely open and honest. He expressed sometime in sort of the middle to end of last season that he would like the opportunity to transfer to a different team if there was an opportunity available. And from our side, he, to be completely honest, he had a contract that was expiring in the near future. So from our perspective, we wanted him to re-sign a contract, obviously. And those two things, they don't fully align. So we're not a prison. I know Jason said that on, I think it was the Four Horsemen podcast, like we're not a prison here. And John was an absolute professional the whole way through, and he did everything he could to secure the best results for us. And we repay him with that by giving him the opportunity to explore his options. So he was pretty public, and we were fine with him doing that. Him sort of stating that he was willing to move to Europe and that he was looking potentially for another team, and that was fine with us. We were there to help him find the team that he wanted to and negotiate that transfer. So we weren't 100% sure he would find a team. So there was a bit of uncertainty over the winter break when we don't know exactly if he is going to get offers or anything like that. But thankfully for him and for everyone, that it all worked out great for us. And He's obviously gone on to FaZe, and I think he's enjoying the challenge over there. It's not easy joining a new team, and especially one so established as FaZe. But yeah, he's definitely playing well over there, and the team is having their ups and downs and struggles, but wishing him all the best. And yeah, we get along well with all of our former players, and we wish them all the best. So yeah, obviously that leads us to having to replace two players. And just to be completely honest with you, the market is tough at the moment. People want a lot of money for players who probably are not worth the money that they are worth. And lots of players have re-signed new contracts, and it's not easy to players don't have great mobility these days like they used to. Having said that, we are very happy with the players we got. They may have come a bit out of left field, I think, for a lot of people, but they are two players that are definitely have a lot of potential, I think, is the main thing. And one thing that we said to ourselves going into this period is that we want to be North American. We want to keep representing North America. We don't want to sort of half-ass it and sort of like pick up an extra European and be like a 2-2-1 split or anything like that. We want to work with North American talent and represent North America and be sort of the number one true North American team. Obviously, we do have two imported players in positions that I think were quite necessary. I think in-game leaders and AWPers are very hard to find at a certain level in North America. So yeah, we're very happy with the roster we've got. And we knew it was going to be a tough start to the season, like bringing in essentially two rookies to sort of tier 1 Counter-Strike. Obviously the invites we had from the previous team carried over. So we went with having Floppy and Elige, and we got invites now for sort of two guys who were playing at ESEA Advanced last year in North America, which is a big step up towards sort of tier 1 Counter-Strike. And if you ask me, I don't think even I expected to get or to have to face the teams that we faced so early on. I don't think it's an understatement to say that playing Virtus Pro, Eternal Fire, Liquid, the Mongols, and the Virtus Pro again as your first 5 matches in tier 1 Counter-Strike is a bit of a rough draw. We we did our best, and lots of the games were very close. So there was a lot to learn from in those games. And yeah, I think we're definitely a better team than we started off the season as. But we're disappointed. We wanted to do better in those matches, and I think that we definitely could have done better in those matches. But I think the main thing is this isn't something that is an overnight project. We don't expect the team to be completely coherent and fluent, from day one. So yeah, it's there were some tough losses in there, like going to overtime against Eternal Fire on Train. We should have easily closed that map out and gone to at least won that map. I think we could have won against Liquid on Ancient. I think we could have definitely won on Inferno against Virtus Pro. And then a lot of the other maps, we had 10-13s. I think there were some close games. I think the one really disappointing result we had was the Saw match, mainly because we were 11-1 up at one point, and I think if you lose any match at 11-1, no matter who the opponent is, I think you're extremely disappointed there. So that was really disappointing. Thankfully, we bounced back a bit. Went back to North America. We practiced for a few weeks, and then we just played the Bucharest qualifier. And yeah, obviously that went really well for us. We dropped one map out of 13 or something, and it's nice to sort of go back and sort of prove that we still rule the roost, so to speak, at home. Something that I think we did consistently for the past sort of 2 years, with the exception of when Liquid decided they were North American or they weren't North American. With a caveat of Energy and M80 both were not in that qualifier because they were at Pro League. So, it wasn't a full lineup of North American teams, but, I think we still proved, especially, in the final against Wildcard, that we're, very good domestically, and still definitely in the consideration, or if not the best team in North America. And that's definitely where we want to be. but we also want to be more than that as well. So it's still early days, and yeah, we're trying our best. We're working hard, and it's always a long process. But yeah, I think the future is bright. We've at least got ourselves another LAN event under the into the schedule, and there's a few other things we have either invites for or opportunities to qualify for coming up. So hopefully some more of those will fall into place very soon, and we can begin to sort of flesh out the next half of our calendar. I think it's definitely not understating that it's very tough in this current ecosystem to play and attend events. I think that you can already begin to see, especially with like us and Wildcard, for example. We obviously had the invites coming off the back of last year because we performed well at the end of last year. So we played Katowice and PGL Cluj. But because the qualifiers for the next set of events were during those two events, we couldn't play like the Blast qualifier and we couldn't play the Dallas qualifier. There were no qualifiers for Melbourne. So now the next team, so M80 and Energy have won the qualifiers for those events, but then there'll be a cycle where because they're away, the qualifiers for the next events after that will be when they're away, and I think it's going to be extremely hard for a North American team to consistently qualify for events because there's always going to be a lag in when they can play the next qualifier. Even the next qualifier for PGL Astana is extremely close to the PGL Bucharest dates, which means that either we can choose to play the Astana qualifier or we can choose to go early to Europe and practice and boot camp for Bucharest. So we already have to make another decision on whether we want to qualify for another event or give everything we can to the event we have to attend. I say have to attend, we want to attend. So it's the figuring out the ecosystem right now, and what's best is extremely tough. You could argue that it just playing qualifiers, qualifying for events, denying the other teams in your region the opportunity to go to an event, and then just finishing as best you can and taking up the prize money is perhaps the best way to do it. But I don't think that's necessarily in the best interests of the whole ecosystem, and also potentially not in the best interests of ourselves, because if we don't give ourselves the best shot at Bucharest to do as good as we can, then you never know if you can earn your own invites back by being successful. So I think at some point you have to back yourselves and say, hey, like, we're going to skip a qualifier, we're going to go to Bucharest, win 3-4 games, and then we'll be in the contention to receive all these invites anyway. So I think that will be the plan, but we're still figuring out the full logistics. We do have an invite for, I don't know if this is public. I don't know if I can, I suppose it is public and it's VRS, so I guess it's fine. We have an invite for the Yala Campus Qatar event, which is like 2 days before Bucharest. So I think we will fly in slightly early to Europe, play the qualifier for Yala Campus, and then go to Bucharest and play Bucharest, and then sort of go from there. But nothing's 100% set in stone yet. We still need to figure out all the logistics. We only qualified, like 36 hours ago. So there's still a lot to figure out, but I think that'll be the main plan. If we don't do that, then we may play the Astana qualifier in North America and then fly to Bucharest and play that. And then obviously, I guess the elephant in the room is immediately following PGL Bucharest is I suppose in the middle of PGL Bucharest is the cutoff for the major invites. And right now, it's very unlikely that we will get a direct invite to the major. We're currently I think we're in 6th or 7th position. I don't know. I think us M80 and Energy are kind of like flip-flopping depending on decay right now. But the main thing is we're not top 5 in the Americas. And if we're not top 5 in the Americas, we don't get a direct invite to the major. So we are looking at playing the North American MRQ, which is I don't know what MRQ stands for anymore. Major regional qualifier, I think. So any team that's not in the top 5 of the Americas ranking, which currently is Pain, Liquid, Furia, MIBR, and Wildcard, will play their respective regional qualifier. So right now that would be M80, us, Energy, Blue Jays, I think Nouns, Party Astronauts, and Marsborn or something. It's a pretty stacked qualifier for a North American event. I think if everyone's available to play, so it's definitely no joke. But that's the situation, and we've come through every qualifier we've played in North America so far. So I'm hoping and confident that we will continue to go through that. But yeah, we'll have to see. And then after that, I mean, who knows what happens? The major is obviously the biggest focal point of this season, and winning that would be more important than winning the qualifier for that would essentially be more important than any other event, apart from obviously performing at the major. So yeah, we will see how all that goes. But that's another month away now. So yeah, that's the general schedule and sort of update we've got from this first part of the season. Yeah, I guess the next thing to touch on is the coach situation. So yeah, I think people were a bit shocked. I think it was last week, or no, a bit late, a bit longer than last week. Maybe I think it's about 10 days ago actually. Now we obviously announced the release of Tion from the team. This was a really tough one, because it's very hard to say that he or anyone has done anything wrong. I think the main thing that is relevant is we needed to change something up. And when we came down to it, the most logical person to change was TC. And again, like I say this, he's a fantastic friend. Over the last 3 years, we've formed a really great relationship. I can't honestly say he's put a foot wrong in those 3 years. I think he's a fantastic coach. I think he will go on and find a new team and do a great job with any other team he finds. I think we just needed to change something up to shake things up. I think that JT has never worked with another coach, so he doesn't know what's out there. He doesn't know what potentially a coach could provide for him. And I think just having that ability to expand our horizons a bit and sort of see what else is out there is something that we felt was essential. I said it really. So yeah, really tough conversation to have, a really tough decision to make, because I value Tian a lot, and value the time we've had together and the experiences we've had. And it's never easy to make those phone calls or make those calls. I feel like I make too many of them these days, but it's something that sometimes has to happen and sometimes necessary. So yeah, that's yeah, that was tough, but we're in the process now of looking for the new coach. We're not desperate to rush into it, I would say. It's not something that we want to have a coach in place day one to start working with the team. I think it's really important that we spend some time and find the right coach who we think both balances what we want from the organizational perspective, and also what the players and I guess most importantly JT will have with that person, because there's a lot of how do you say there's a lot of people that person needs to please. So I think that it's important that we spend some time and really go do our due diligence and figure out who that person is, because they're going to have a lot of responsibility. I think all coaches should have a lot of responsibility, and I think that something that people don't really things that people don't really consider about coaches is it's actually extremely hard to gauge what a coach does for another team from the outside. And I think most pro players will own up to this as well, is that they can say, like, they look at a team and they say, like, I don't know if the coach is doing that, I don't know if the IGL is doing that, I don't know if the players are making their own calls. You don't know how a coach runs the team. Do they run the team? Do the players run the team? Like, there's so many things that you just don't know. So you really have to sort of talk to these players, talk to the former players, talk to them old management, really try and figure out exactly who they are and what they're going to bring to a team, so that you can understand what they're going to bring to you. Sorry, I'm just gonna jump in here because I saw a question. Um, Arata 2000, you mentioned dropped their coach without having a ready replacement. Yeah, we did. And I think that's the right thing to do. I think that's 100% the right thing to do. Like, if you're going to make a decision that you're going to let someone go, like, you tell them immediately. You don't drag them on for 2 weeks, 3 weeks while you interview all their replacements behind their back and then fire them overnight. Like, you give them a courtesy of actually like telling them to their face, like, hey, we don't see a future with you for whatever reason it is. And then you let them get on with their lives. We get on with our lives. Like, it's our decision. So we'll deal with the consequences of that. And we're not going to go behind that person's back to, uh, to start replacing them. That's when people start talking and they start finding out. And then you hear all these rumors. And it's just, that's not how we work here. That's not what we do. So, we are coachless right now. We're operating without a coach. We couldn't have a coach in the server during PGL Bucharest. We can't have a coach in the MRQ for the major. So I think, some of the value of the coaches is, a little more diminished in the upcoming weeks. And we're not signing a coach to have for 4 weeks. We're signing a coach that we want to have for multiple years. So I think it's important that everyone is aware of the situation and we're all sort of working towards the same goals. But it's I think it's important on the human side that people are made aware of the situation and able to move on. And I don't think that sort of stringing them along for an extra few weeks just to sort of gain a little bit of an advantage when you know that you're going to be changing things anyway really helps anyone in that situation. So yeah, we're obviously a little bit short-staffed to some degree, but I don't think that's going to have too much of a effect on us in the near future. I think the only thing that might have to happen is we might play Bucharest without a coach. I think that's potentially quite realistic. I think worst case, I will have to stand behind them, but that's not a goal of mine. It's definitely not the goal of mine. But if we have nobody else, then I will do that. We're still trying to work with an analyst or some kind of analyst to help us do anti-strat for our opponents. So we're not going in completely blind. I think the main thing is right now is that JT has taken on more of a responsibility in terms of, I wouldn't say more of a responsibility, but he's taken sole responsibility of like the tactical elements, what he wants to introduce in the game, which for now he's happy with. Obviously, long term, he would like assistance, someone to bounce ideas from. And that's also going back to the point that I made, is like having somebody else who he can bounce ideas off, bring fresh perspectives, is something that I think will be valuable in the long term, which is part of the reason it made the change. So yeah, I think the coach situation long term will resolve itself, no problem. That's my main priority for the next few weeks, is going through the list of coaches that are available, interested, and seeing what can make sense, who we can work with, and sort of narrowing that list down to someone who we feel comfortable working with, hopefully for a long period. But it's not something we're going to rush into for sure. What have I got on my list? I've kind of covered that one. I may have run out of topics already. Okay, hold on. My clock is frozen. I've just realized it's nearly past. My clock says it's 1/4. I've just realized my clock's frozen. I thought time had frozen for a second. Right, I said I would do an AMA at the end of this, at the end of the show. I didn't think I would bring it this early. I feel like there's something I've forgotten. Is there anything that we need to talk about? Is there anything like that I've obviously just forgotten about, like the start of this season? I guess one thing I should mention is we've signed up for Fragadelphia, since I think I just saw Bonamant had just appeared somewhere. We signed up for Fragadelphia in Vegas. Just to be completely open and honest with you, because that's all I ever want to be with you guys. Floppy is a free agent, Trenel. we wanted to go to Frag Philadelphia, and we were going to buy a ticket and we were going to get all the logistics done. Then we changed our minds and we were going to buy the Party Astronauts ticket when they self-imploded, let's say. I don't want to talk about that situation, but yeah, when Party Astronauts self-imploded, we were going to buy their ticket, mostly because Ben Lee had paid for the ticket entirely out of his own money. So we wanted to try and help him out and take the ticket. The issue and the reason why we didn't attend in the end was because Holzerk's P1 visa renewal, which he got approved back in 2023, but then he had to reapply for his P1 when his contract got renewed in 2024, and that P1 hasn't been fully approved yet. So because he couldn't attend on obviously an event in the United States, the value of us going to Frag was minimal because JT, Holzerk, and Grim are the 3-player core for our VRS. And if we don't attend with one of those 3 players, we're not earning points towards that core. So, to be completely honest, we could have still gone. Oh, that's right. That's true, Kyle. His visa is approved, but he needs a waiver. And that waiver goes through a different agency, and we're still waiting for them. Yes, I don't want to get into the details, but we can say that. Yeah, so essentially, we could have still gone to Philadelphia, and the only real benefit that would have had for us is maybe in like 4 months when our core drops off from the Elige floppy sort of points and fully becomes the new core with 60 and Nix. That's the only time we would have really seen those points. And the only other benefit we would have had is, I'd like to assume we would have beaten some other teams. So maybe teams like Marsborn and Blue Jays don't earn the same amount of points that they do because they lose earlier in the tournament. I'd like to assume we would have won or come quite high, at least. So we would have denied other teams points. And yeah, I don't think that is the best thing for the ecosystem. And I mean, financially for us, it doesn't make much sense to go to an event just to deny other teams opportunities. So yeah, we basically decided not to go to that. We just sent the guys to Mexico early to prepare for the Bucharest qualifier. And I mean, I'm hoping that decision has paid off. Obviously, we qualified, so I'd like to think that's paid off. Yeah, so that was the reason why we didn't go to the first Philadelphia. But we will most likely attend the second one. That will be with or without Holzerk. Whether he's there or not, we will still attend. That event is at the end of April, and by the end of April, that's 4 months into the year. The VRS works on like a 6-month rolling decay. So the only events that we would have left on our VRS by the point of like the next update, which would be the start of May, would only be, I think, half of IEM Rio and the RMR and the major. So we'd have like 1 land win at Rio from beating Imperial, 3 from the RMR beating MAD, Bestia, and Boss, I think it was. And then we'd have like 2 wins beating Cloud9 and it was the other team we beat in the major. Cloud9 and Imperial again. So they would be like the only 5 matches we have left at that point. So then Philadelphia would be a bit more valuable to us on our new core as well. So yeah, I guess that's the reason why we didn't attend the first Philadelphia and why we will attend the second Philadelphia. It wasn't because we weren't aware of the value of the VRS. I think if there's any team that is the more aware of the value of the VRS than any other, it's probably us. So yeah, we understood the value, but the value to us in that moment in time wasn't as high as it could have been. So that's the reason why we didn't attend. I think that's all the events we've currently got in the calendar. I think there's a qualifier for Thunderpick happening quite soon. Sorry, I actually had a cough. I'm going to mute myself for 1 second. All right, that feels much better. Great. Yeah, I think there's a qualifier for the Thunderpick World Championships, which is happening in like November, I think. No, October. It's happening in October, but the first North American qualifier happens in May. So that's quite early. And then the other one's in July, which is quite late. And then apparently the invites for the main event go out in August. So you could already be fully qualified before the invites even go out, which makes no sense at all. That might have to be an email to Valve. Yeah, I hadn't noticed that before. That might be an email to Valve because that doesn't make any sense. That's just going to be a complete clusterfuck when teams that are already qualified get invited, and then how do they just skip over them? I don't know. Anyway, maybe it's fine. I don't think technically it breaks any rules. It's just a very weird system where you run all the open qualifiers before you do the invites, which is like the reverse of how everything works ever. Right? I'm not crazy there. You can earn prize money from the qualifiers. That's nice. Cool. Yeah, so that'll be one thing we play in May. There's not many qualifiers for the rest of this season because most of the events have already got like full team lists. Like if I look at the rest of the events for this season, or Pro League's happening, Blast Open has already got all the teams. Bucharest has got like all the teams now, I think. Well, the European team just qualified. Yala Compass still needs teams, so we're playing that qualifier. Melbourne's full. Blast Rivals is fully invite. PGL Astana has qualifiers, but we're maybe playing those. Dallas is full, and the major is the major. So yeah, it's basically just the major, Yala Compass, and Bucharest for us for the rest of the season. So it's definitely a step down in the amount of events we used to play, which is in some ways good and some ways bad. Obviously, we'd like to play as many events as we can, but I'd be, the amount of events we've played in the past years has been a bit too much. I think some teams are going completely crazy with the amount of. I think they're going completely crazy with the amount of events they're playing, and I think they're going to really struggle. Like I see like Eternal Fire playing Bounty, Katowice, Cluj, Pro League. They're then, I think, playing Blast Open, which is like the week after Pro League, and then they're also going to PGL Bucharest. So they're playing like the first 6 events of the year. I think that will eventually catch up with them. But I also understand, coming from the partner league era where some of these teams had little to no opportunities, I understand that when you finally get the opportunity, you want to take it with sort of both hands. But as a team that's experienced playing every event we possibly can, it becomes quite a lot as well. But also, I also think that European teams just don't have the same levels of, I don't want to say burnout because burnout's not the right word, but they don't have the same level of fatigue as North American teams or South American teams or Asia. The Mongols obviously are playing a lot of events as well. I think that the amount of travel those teams would have to do to attend this amount of events, and it's not just the amount of travel you do to the events, but it's like when you travel to play Blast Bounty, Katowice, Cluj-Napoca, well, you want to obviously start the season off with a big boot camp. So you boot camp for like 2 weeks before you play Blast Bounty. Then you go to Katowice, then you go to Cluj. Our guys were in Europe from like January 6th until February 20th or something like that. Like it was a really long time to just be stuck in a hotel room, at a boot camp, stuck in hotels all the time. It's yeah, it's definitely tough. So whereas European teams could sort of go to an event, go home, go to an event, go home, go to an event, go home. Whereas like my guys, if I had traveled with the guys the full time, I wouldn't have seen my wife and kids for like 6.5 weeks. Like that's too much. and obviously I'm older, so I don't have I have different responsibilities and a different life to some of these players, but it's definitely not sustainable in the long term, I think. So we will see how this shapes out. I know a lot of teams are very scared about the whole VRS, and they're trying to make sure they maintain invites and things like that. I think teams will begin to pick and choose a bit more, more than they already have been in some cases. I think we're all aware of some of the allegations. I'm going to call them allegations because I can't prove them myself. Allegations towards certain teams, ganging up on certain TOs and things like that. That's nothing to do with me. I don't get involved in that. But yeah, some teams have been picking and choosing, and I think teams might begin, or players might begin to start trying to pick and choose their events and their schedules based on travel commitments and just the volume of events, because I think it's going to be too much pretty soon for a lot of players who are trying to attend all these events. All right, I'm going to switch over to the AMA now after a shout out, thanks to Cold Beef himself. Might be worth talking about some really important online events, the Prize Picks North American Revival Series, and the recent changes to the format. Did we settle on a new format yet? Because didn't Valve tell us we had to change it the day after we announced it? Something like that. I seem to remember. But yeah, NA Revival Series is back. I think in mid to late April. I think is the next one. That was due to the 2-month lead time we had to have ahead of announcing an event because of the VRS. So yeah, I think it's back. Is it in April or is it May? I think the first one's in May. The two we announced are good to go with the new format. Okay, so we have to change it after that. Right, cool. Anyway, yeah, new format. I think it's mostly the same as the old format. It's just difference with how the invites are working. So I think we're inviting 6 teams straight to the GSL groups, and then there's two teams coming from the open qualifiers. Yeah, 2 4-team GSL groups into semifinals, grand final, open to North American teams, or is it North American based teams, Kyle? Is it North American based teams or North American teams? I can't remember if we have a stipulation on residency and citizenship, but it's for North American teams. It's taking place on North American servers, all American servers. I imagine Chicago, Dallas, Los Angeles, things like that. Denver, I think, is in there as well. And as Scott says, if you want to get a lovely shirt like this with the throwback logo, shop.col.gg is where you want to go to. Right. Cool. I saw a few questions here that I wanted to answer. So this one here from Thugs Bunny. I love that. Thugs Bunny. Where have I got here? So travel spent the year, airport and flight time. I might be the only team that actually has this data. So might as well share it. Right. 2024. Let's just do the players for now and all. So we took, for just the 5 players for 2024, they took 267 flights. So that's if you go so for example, if I go to Katowice or something, I would fly from Copenhagen to Frankfurt or Warsaw to Katowice. So that would be 2 flights. So that wouldn't be 1 flight, that would be 2 flights. And just just for complete honesty, sometimes when Holzerk flies places, he has 4 flights because he goes from his local city airport to Oslo to Frankfurt to Atlanta to Dallas or something like that. So sometimes he takes 4 flights to get to places. Again, the best example was actually the one he took to Mexico was his hometown to Oslo to Amsterdam to Mexico City to Monterrey. So yeah, he takes quite a lot of flights. So yeah, the players took 267 flights. They spent 1,391 hours and 51 minutes in the air. If you take expected travel time, that's not actual travel time because I'm not autistic enough to go through and check every single flight they actually took and figure out how long it actually took the flight to travel the actual distance. That's just the schedule time. they had 126 layovers, so 267 flights, 126 layovers. So you can see there's a few direct flights in there, or quite a few. They spent 292 hours layover, so 292 hours just stuck in airports across 5 players. That's like an average of what, like 60 hours each, just sat in airports. 3 days of their lives, basically. Nice. Yeah. So the total travel time, including flights and layovers without like taxis to and from the airport, like getting to the airport 2 hours before the flight, was like 1,683 hours, which is 70 days. We paid our Counter-Strike players for 70 days across the whole of last year to sit in airports and sit on planes. Yeah, that's tough. And then hotel nights, or nights away from home, I guess we could say, because sometimes they're not specifically hotels that the players have stayed in, but they've been nights away from home, so I'll count that. Average of what is that? Average of 204 days away last year. So yeah, 204 days away average. Total amount of nights was 1,023 across the 5 players. So yeah, it's not an easy life, and I think like that could have been a lot more. You know, for example, last year we didn't make the playoffs of Katowice. We didn't make playoffs of Cologne. We didn't play either of the Blast finals last year, so that's 2 events we didn't go to. What else didn't we make? We got sent home early from Dallas. We got sent home early from Rio. You know, like if we'd been successful, that could have been more days. So you know, it's not easy being in the life of a Counter-Strike player, especially the life of a North American Counter-Strike player, because you have to add on all the boot camps, then you have to add on like the time between events where it's like, do I want to go back to North America for 5 days where like 2 of the days is travel, or do I want to just stay in Europe for 5 days and sort of wait? So yeah, it's tough. But how many subs to shave all my facial hair? I'll just show this one from One Junior, our former AWPer back in 2022. Miss you, Peyton. I hope you guys finally get some funding, Peyton. How many subs to shave all your facial hair? You need to talk to my wife. She's honestly like, I always joke to her that I want to just shave my beard off one day, and she will not let me do it. So yeah. Out of interest, have you guys seen the video of me having my beard waxed? This might be an interesting one. I don't know where I've got it. I've got it somewhere. I'm guessing nobody's seen the video of my beard being waxed, but I will find it somewhere. It was waxed live on an ESL Pro League finals broadcast in 2016. For Movember, I think it was, and it was done by Yanko and Moses were the 2 guys who ripped it. I would need to go back. I think I have it somewhere on like on my hard drive, but I just switched PC, so I don't think I've got it on this one. I think it's on the one that's not plugged in down below me right now. But I will find that for next week's show, and we will watch it together. I'll make a promise. We will find that clip. I will find it, and we will watch it together next week. Because I definitely have it somewhere. So I will be able to find that. Weirdly, that was the last time my beard was shaved like fully, because I had to. It left like so much patches on the side that I had to like shave everything into a goatee. So it was also my very last day working at ESL. So yeah, I basically had my last day, then I had to shave all of the sides of my beard off because they were completely patchy. So then I arrived to my new job like 2 days later after I traveled home from Brazil, back to Germany, then flew to Copenhagen, which is like a crazy goatee. Like, no, I'd never seen anything like it. It was ridiculous. So like the next like 2 weeks, I just like grew the sides back because it was stupid. Right, we are now in full AMA mode, by the way. So just start like throwing questions. I know there's been questions further up that I've missed. Just start throwing out questions, and I will keep answering for the next 15 minutes or so. I'm just going to scroll up and see if I can. All right, here we go. With the growing list of teams going to Frag Vegas, what are your expectations for the team? What are the stakes? So I sort of covered the stakes a bit earlier. Obviously, we want to win matches and improve our VRS, and also deny other teams from earning their points. So as I said, we would likely at this point, I think, potentially be playing without Halzerk. So we will need a substitute AWPer. Junior, you're in the chat. Junior, do you want to come AWP for us if you're not signed by them? We'll see. But yeah, we're I think hoping to still be competitive. I think we still see ourselves at the top of North America despite not having Halzerk. So yeah, it won't be easy, obviously, but it will be something that we'll give it our best shot. And I think that it's important to support these local events, even though obviously there's more of a benefit now to us attending than purely just supporting the local events. But I also think it's important to support these events and grow them and give them more attention. And hopefully, Complexity going there, bringing our brand will be beneficial. Let's see. Let's have a look. Who's next? Oh God. Oh, Sir Scoots. Long time listener, first time caller. Your thoughts on that sweet EWC partner team money, and did you all apply this year? And if not, what leads to that decision? I'm sorry, Scott. Good to see you. I know we talk occasionally here and there and exchange pleasantries. That's a question for Jason. I purely manage the Counter-Strike roster. Obviously I support all the other teams we have, and I regularly tune in and watch the Halo and the Rocket League teams and all those guys. But my thoughts and my energy goes purely on Counter-Strike. I don't get involved really in the sort of the wider organizational topics unless I'm sort of directly asked to be, or just happen to fall into place. So you can ask Jason about that question. But obviously, yeah, we weren't an EWC partner last year. I don't know the reason for that, whether we applied or whether we didn't. And Jason can answer those questions for you. Next one from Evan Core. Any update on if Valve will rework the VRS change so that teams in ECL can have a chance at making the MRQ before invites go out? Certainly no update. I think Valve were very intentional with the change they made to, just for context, everyone. This goes back to what happened to Gamer Legion back in the February update, but it was something that had been brought to Valve's attention, I think, as early as like July 2024. Basically, the Valve updates, whenever they went out, would include every single match up until that point. And that meant that like ongoing events were included on the head-to-head because the matches were included, but things like the prize money, which obviously gets assigned at the end of an event, were not included. And this led to there was a potential that, well, there was two potentials. One potential was that if you knew the update was coming on like the same day, it could actually be beneficial to lose your match to gain the prize money benefit onto the ranking before the ranking updated, rather than win the match, because then you wouldn't get the prize money added. That's the main reason. And the other reason is just to make sure that it's like consistent so that everything gets updated, which is fine for most events. But for ECL, which runs over a period of like 3 months or 3.5 months, it's very troublesome because it basically means that all the teams who play ECL don't gain any value from ECL until it's finished. But the thing is, the way the Valve ranking calculates is it calculates everything in order sequentially. So the match that you played in ECL in January, by the time the ranking gets updated in May, will already be 3.5 months decayed, which is basically means you don't get any value from those matches until they're long lost their value. I don't know if Valve will implement a change on that. I think it's unlikely because it's such a niche case. I think more likely is that ESL reworks ECL into multiple stages so that there's like a cutoff point for each stage, and then they can gain the value that way. Um, and like this issue actually directly affected us technically because we beat a bunch of ECL teams on the way to winning the Bucharest qualifier, and because those teams don't have the value they've earned from the matches they've played in ECL, they're worth less to us when we beat them. So technically, we could have more points if ECL had been included. Weird little caveat there. When does it make sense to be in leagues like CCT or ECL? I would say we would play CCT if they run it at a time when we were home. The last CCT, I think, took place when we were in either Katowice or Bucharest. Cluj, but it was played in Bucharest. So, yeah, CCT, I think we would play if we could play it when it lines up with our schedule. But yeah, as long as the events are clashing with like European events that we're qualified for, which obviously right now we don't have as many, then we will play them as much as we can. ECL is a different question because, as I just alluded to, it's a lot harder to commit that much time for us right now because we hope to be attending more events. Again, I think ESL. I have no insider information on this. Like, I don't know what ESL is planning, but my guess would be that they will modify the format slightly, so it's not as long and it's split up so that it's more achievable to play, and something you can actually gain from on a short-term basis as well. Had Philadelphia been on the radar before NIP and others signed up? I'll just cover this one off quickly because I mentioned it earlier in the show. Yes, it had. I was the one telling teams to attend the Philadelphia in December last year, the one that Energy played, because I told them like, hey, this is worth a crap ton of points. Like, you might qualify for like Katowice or something if you like win these games. And I think Energy actually came pretty close to qualifying for Katowice from it. I know that M80, who I also told to attend and didn't, they would have qualified for Katowice had they gone to Philadelphia and won the tournament like Energy did. So I don't know if they regret that, but I think they might. Yeah. But yeah, Philadelphia has been on our radar for a long time. Obviously, when it started gaining value in the rankings to the extent it does, it's more valuable. The December one last year clashed with the major, so we wouldn't have attended either way. But also, the main value from Philadelphia comes. Well, the main value of events like Philadelphia, which are like open sign up events, to be honest, with a weaker lineup than these sort of tier one events, is that a LAN win at Philadelphia in a they don't play BO1s, but like imagine it was a BO1 at Philadelphia. That LAN win would be worth the same as winning a BO5 final at Katowice. Like, that just gives you one in the column, a number one, and they're both equal, exactly equal. Doesn't matter the context of the event or anything like that. You get one LAN win. So yeah, being able to essentially build up those LAN wins is extremely valuable to teams that don't have LAN wins. Now, at the time that some of the other Philadelphias have happened, we had LAN wins on the board from Pro League. We won like 6 matches at Pro League. We won matches at Blast and things like that. So we already had like a decent stock of LAN wins that the value would have been extremely diminished. But for a team who doesn't play many LAN events, such as most of North American teams, going to Philadelphia is worth like crazy amounts of points. So yeah. This is another question mostly for Jason, but I'll highlight it for him. When returning to the OG logo, why didn't you choose to keep the L in the red? I also noticed that the L used to be like bigger, right? Because it used to be like complexity. Again, you have to talk to Jason. This is all him and branding. I know he almost wants to stop us answering questions about returning to the OG logo because we want to go to the new version of this logo when it comes. Hopefully later this year, I think, is the plan for that. But yeah, I honestly couldn't tell you why the L isn't red anymore. But yeah. Right, let's go. Let's have a look. Okay, I think I've already answered that question. Yeah, everyone's getting upset about the VRS. Where are we? Okay, so hey, we answered that question here because the L has a negative connotation that it didn't have 10 plus years ago. Yeah, I guess in getting a big fat L is rough. So that's the reason why. Okay, so quick question here. So Thugs Bunny, is there a way to calculate how much points you would get for potential win? The answer is yes. There absolutely is a way to do that. The longer answer to that is yes, if you have a list of all the data that is relevant. Because, as I said, the VRS calculates every single match that's eligible, so within a 6-month period, in sequential order. So, as other matches are happening on the back of HLTV, the value of your match that you're playing will change depending on the results of those matches and how that can affect the especially at the top end. So when like if you're playing a CCT during like PGL Bucharest or PGL Cluj or IM Katowice or like some of these bigger events that have like especially the high prize pools, those can change the value of the scaling that your match is worth, because as the top teams get better, the other teams get scaled down relative to those top teams to show the gap in the teams. So like, you know, the VRS works very similar to HLTV in a sense that there's like a top cap. Like the best team in the world is worth 2,000 points, whereas HLTV they're worth 1,000 points. So maybe if you go back and look at like the value of the teams back in like 2018 when Astralis were like dominating the entire scene, you'll see that Astralis was still on 1,000 points, but then like the next teams below them were like squeezing down the values. Like, yeah, I think like some teams are worth like 100 points being in the top 10, whereas now like most teams have like 300, 400 points in the top 10 because no team is dominating so heavily that every other team is getting pushed down. So, yeah, yes, you can calculate how much points you would get from a win. The only people who can do that reliably 100% are HLTV themselves, because they are the only ones who have the full access to the data, except for Valve, but they're not going to live update. So yeah, HLTV are the only ones who have exact access to the data that would allow you to calculate that. I know there are attempts made by people. I don't know if he wants to be called out. I think he's in the chat. To replicate the similar level of data via Liquipedia data, because obviously they track all the matches as well. In fact, they actually have a wider scope of matches that are covered, because they cover things like group stages for Philadelphia and things like that. Actually, no, maybe they don't cover group stages for Philadelphia, but they do cover like group stages for certain events that are not covered in HLTV, which means that technically they have more data, so it is more accurate, but it's inaccurate because it's not the official source of the data, so it won't ever be correct. But yeah, the simple answer is you can't do it unless you're HLTV, but you can make an attempt at it, but it won't be accurate or 100% accurate. Yeah. I didn't want to turn this into a VRS show. I really didn't. Here we go. Okay, this is a good one because I like this one. Do you think there are any incentives to have an academy team in NA? I've said this before and I'll say it again. I think there is definitely value to having a academy team in North America. I think that it's a lot more diminished compared to Europe just because of the lack of events. You know, a good example right now is Navi and Spirit declined PGL Bucharest, I think it was. So their academy teams can play those qualifiers. Well, we're never going to be in a position realistically right now where we're going to be declining events so heavily. So we're going to be playing the qualifiers. So if your team cannot play official matches, there's no point in having an academy team. So I think that the main issue is that there's just not enough. There's not enough tournaments to play in North America, where like, you know, we would have to play every single tournament. So the academy team would never be able to play a tournament. And I think that was like an issue that EG ran into, but they also had 2 academy teams and a main team that wasn't attending that many tournaments. So they were in a bit of a weird bind. And I think that they initially planned to have, I think they initially planned to have one of the teams based in Europe and one of them in North America, so they could sort of double dip and switch over. That obviously never came to fruition, so I don't know what happened there. But with the new VRS changes, that wouldn't really even be possible anyway, to have a North American team based in Europe, because they wouldn't get the European invites from CCT. So yeah, I think things have changed a lot now. I think that you would need to be in like such a dominant position in North America that you're consistently going to attend enough events. But even then, like for example, like if we were directly invited to the Blast event and to the ESL events and to the PGL events, our academy team still wouldn't be able to play the qualifiers, and those are the only events really. So yeah, I think it's extremely limited what the value you can get from having an academy team in North America right now. I think it's a lot easier for European teams who are at the top level to have academy teams. Obviously, there are incentives to having an academy team. Being able to bring in talent early on, so that you're not paying crazy transfer fees. You can get them fully adjusted into your system. Bring them through. Ideally in sort of the complexity way. But realistically, that's not something that's going to work out due to the lack of opportunities. So. Okay, so this is a trick question. Graham, what is your favorite exercise equipment to use while watching complexity play matches? Now, obviously, that's because I have this in the background, which is an elliptical machine. But that's a trick question, because that's actually for my wife. And when I watch matches, I am out in my shed on my bike on a trainer. If you know Pimp, he likes to go on his bike trainer. He talks a lot about bikes and cycling indoors. I do the same thing, and that's out in my shed. I've got a nice setup with a big TV, a little mini PC, and then my tablet and the fans, and it's very nice. And it's freezing cold out in there in the winter, so you have to work harder to not get cold, but that's part of the fun, right? Next question. Which Cole player is closest to gym fat? So I don't know. Is this is this like personality wise, or like play style wise? Can you elaborate? I think personality, it might be Nick's actually. Is there? I'm not saying that he's a gooner. I'm not saying he's a gooner, but he plays a lot of the same roles. So I'm gonna say Nick's for now. Is there any more questions? I'm aware this was meant to be kept to an hour. I don't think I'm ruining anyone's day by going over an hour, but I think the plan will be to try and sort of wrap it up in the next sort of 5 minutes. So, last few questions, if there are any. Here we go. Oh, one more question I missed. From your viewpoint, or your point of view, have you seen the development of players and teams in NA increase, be the same as it was, or decrease? Oh, yeah, I'm going to upset a few people here. I think the state of North America right now is the worst it's been in the last 3 years. 100%. I think that North America doesn't have a currently international level team. And just for clarity, I do not consider Liquid a North American team. They do not play in North America. They do not live in North America. They do not have a core base of North American players. Twists has lived in Europe for like 4 years. I don't consider them North American. I think right now, I think we were the last team that was internationally competitive at the top level, like a team that can genuinely compete at the top 10 level, or compete for top 10 level. And obviously, we've taken a bit of a step down in the last 3 months, since the roster changes. We're aiming to get back there, but it's I can't deny it. We've definitely taken a step down, and we were in that position for the better part of 18 months. Obviously, since Elige got added back in June 2023. Obviously, we hit CS2 running very hard. We had the grand final at Sydney, made top 4 at Blast finals. We were clearly a top team at the start of CS2. even going through to mid to last year, we were still making top four at Pro League. We had we had an interesting run at the second Pro League where we beat Astralis twice, beat Mouse Sports twice, beat FaZe, but still only finished top 12, which sounds horrific, but if you lose matches, that's what happens. I still think we were a genuinely top 10 competing team for better part of 18 months, and right now North America does not have a team that can compete at that level. So it looks like the tier 2 North American teams have gotten really close to the upper level of tier 2 North American teams, but I think that's because the upper level has gone worse. I said it. I'm going to upset people about that, but that's the truth, I think. So, yeah. What's the biggest reason for that? No, I'm just going to follow up because you answered the original question. I think the biggest reason for that is because the best players in the region don't play in the region. Twists doesn't play in the region. NAF doesn't play in the region. Elige doesn't play in the region. And those were the same guys that have been the top level since 2019. And no one else has come through since then. That's just how it is. I don't think there's any reason to elaborate too much. No top tier talent has come through since then. Nitro's still playing in NRG, right? But Stewie won an event last year technically, so I suppose I can't discount him. But Stewie doesn't really play, so yeah, it's the honest answer is nobody's replaced the top talent that's left the region, and that leaves the region in a worse position. It's not a question, but I'm really happy about this, by the way. It's really cool the Blue Jays are getting the support they've got. I know it came out of very left field. Everyone thought it was going to be like a North American organization picking them up, but I really like the fact that like a German organization who has facilities in Germany, so they can host their team, at reasonable cost, which means they can hopefully do it more regularly and for longer periods of time. I can't understate how valuable it is to have a North American team spend time in Europe. I mean, everyone who goes to Europe says the same thing. It's like one day in Europe is worth like 10 in North America, and it's definitely true. So yeah, excited to see how Blue Jays do, and obviously everything they learn in Europe, hopefully they bring back to North America, and can help improve the level of the teams when we come back. So it's not a question, but I just wanted to highlight it. Right, I think. Oh, wait, hold on, here we go. One more question I think I saw, which is good. Would be good to get more SA-NA overlap though? That's something that's been missing for a few years now. Yes, it would. I think that there is a number of issues with it. Obviously, the first one being ping issues. Obviously, it means we can't play online against each other. So it would have to be offline events, and then you're looking at pretty extreme costs. Offline events are not cheap. So yeah, I think that it's just something that doesn't really make much sense. Like I would love, especially because we're sort of tied together within the VRS system. I think it would be good to have an event that does, invites the 4 best North American teams, invites the 4 best South American teams, and then has us all face off to truly earn our value and our spots at the major. I suppose technically the RMR used to do that, so we had that twice a year, and now we don't have it. I'm gonna throw Jason under the bus a bit here, but when we were planning, I don't know if we're still planning. We may still be planning to have a LAN. We were looking at a LAN event for North America, and we were looking at having some of the South American teams come as well. I think like Furia, for example, we were looking to invite and have like a LAN in our HQ. I don't think the plans for that have progressed much since then, but I know that was something we were talking about, and yeah, we would have liked to have had it. But yeah, it's I think North America, South America events just don't happen because there is just generally no connection between the regions except the forced one of like the RMRs and the major. Because like the honest answer is we're not the same region. And I've made this point to Valve multiple times. Like we're not, Americas isn't a region. It doesn't exist. Like there is no region called the Americas because they don't play together. They have no domestic competition against each other. We're just sort of lumped together because we're both on that side of the Atlantic, and that's how it is. Yeah. All right. I don't see any more. I mean, I'll answer this. This is the last question now, because I need to go and let people have their time off. But we'll be back next week, and we'll do another AMA at the end of next week as well. And maybe I'll have a guest next week. I haven't decided what to go on next week, but we're going to be consistent, and we're going to do this every week. So yeah, we'll get through to everything eventually. What kinds of things need to happen in NA to attract more players to become top talent? I mean, I think the main thing needs to happen is there needs to be opportunities. Opportunities for players to play full time, primarily. So that they can actually dedicate their life to the game. But a lot of that also comes with the player's attitude and how they approach the game. And I think that that's something that isn't instilled in the North American players of the current generation, because there's not enough veteran leaders within the ecosystem who can also spend their full time teaching these players. And that's from a coaching perspective. Like I look at like a guy like Adrian on Nouns, like he'd be a great guy to teach everyone, but if he's not getting paid because Nouns aren't an org and aren't getting funded, then his motivation to stick around will eventually decrease. So yeah, I think ultimately what we need is more funded teams, and we need to be able to encourage our veteran players to stay within the ecosystem. Not go to Valorant. I think the amount of not necessarily like elite players, but a lot of the experienced players that could have been the next generation of teachers and leaders in this current ecosystem, in this current sort of generation of players. We lost a lot of players that way. That's a good point. Technologics, like Stanislaw's a great example of someone who is so valuable to this ecosystem because he has all the experience, he has the willingness, the motivation, but he's also a guy that probably I know he did stick around for a while, and he played on that Forsaken team that they actually beat us in the Sydney qualifier once. We beat them in the second game, but they beat us in the Sydney qualifier. He came back on his own sort of volition to sort of bring up the next generation of players, and I think that's quite obvious. How Wildcard have improved since since he's been with that team. So the honest answer is we need veteran players who can help the younger generation, and we need funding for more teams so that they can play full time and play the game. And yeah, I think those are the two main things really. All right, I said that was the last question. That is the last question. I'm gonna jump off now. I'm gonna play the outro, and I will be back on when does daylight savings time take effect? It's like 3 weeks, right? I'll be back at the same time next week, which is 21 CET and 6 p.m. No, 3 p.m. Central. That will change in like 3 weeks because the US is currently back on summertime, but EU is still on winter time. So yeah, sometime in like April or something, that will change, and it'll be it'll be a 7 hour gap, and it'll be 2 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. European time. But until then, 3 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. European time. Next Wednesday, I'll be back, and I will try and let you guys know what the topic of next week will be, whether I have a guest or not, and what we're going to talk about in the next few days or leading up to that Wednesday. But otherwise, hoping that this will turn into something that is valuable to people. I'm not doing it so I can sit here and talk about VRS every week, even though I seem to do that anyway. I'd like to make it so that you guys can learn more about other aspects of the ecosystem, if that's what you want to learn about. If you have any ideas for topics that you'd like to hear spoken about, I will do my best. As I said, everything's on the table except getting me cancelled or getting me fired. So other than that, I'm happy to, if I feel like I can provide some level of expertise or I don't know, top value to the topic, then I'll try and talk about it. But yeah, please let's let's try and avoid the VRS. If they do a VRS update and it's actually worth talking about, then I'd love to talk about it. Otherwise, I spend way too much time talking about the VRS. I feel like I talk about it in my sleep, and sometimes I actually do wake up and message people about it in my sleep. I can see that I've sent messages at like 4 a.m. and I still don't understand when or how I answered those questions. So yeah, trying to avoid VRS unless there's actually a reason to talk about it. And yeah, I'll see you guys next week.